So hello, everyone. Welcome. Hope everybody's doing well. As usual, we have a lot of participants from across the globe. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining our fourth webinar for this deep dive webinar series. But before we start the webinar, so to make sure everybody's engaged and understand what we are saying, I would like to share some information. I would like to inform you that there is an interpretation in French, Spanish, and Portuguese. So please go click the globe icon on the Zoom toolbar, and then you can select your preferred language. And if you prefer, you could also only hear the interpreter. So select mute original audio. And all this is possible thanks to our interpreters. We have Eloisa and Lara interpreting into Spanish, Noor and Jordan supporting interpreting French, and Julia, thank you so much all in Portuguese. So thank you. This couldn't have happened without the support of our interpreters. And if anybody wants to use a translation caption into multiple language, you can also do that. And my colleagues will put the instruction in the chat. And if you have also any questions that you'd like the speakers to address, you can write them on the Q&A section or in the chat. And please know that this webinar is being recorded, and we will be sharing it on the Youth for Climate platform and our YouTube channel. So you can go back, look at them, and use it as a reference throughout the next 68 days till the call is officially closed on May 26th. So with this being said, now I can say officially welcome. And this is the second thematic area focused webinar from the Deep Dive webinar series. On Monday, we covered climate and health, and today we'll cover climate, peace, and security. And before I forget, my name is Lydia Mbakombeyene. I am the Learning and Partnership Specialist for the Youth for Climate Initiative at the United Nations Development Program. And as mentioned on our platform, these deep dive webinars are designed to guide applicants in understanding the application process, templates, thematic areas, and support you in designing a very strong proposal. So for those of you who are new to the Youth for Climate platform or this series, the Youth for Climate Call for Solution, it's an innovative challenge that aims to fund new and existing youth-led climate solutions that are ready to be implemented or scaled, and to support the further development of young people's idea and projects by providing relevant learning opportunities such as this kind of webinar. So in addition to this, I just would like to mention a few things. If you need support on the application process or on the call for solution, visit our FAQ page. There you will find frequently asked questions response. We will also have one-to-one support service that will be open in April, so stay tuned. Yeah, so we hope the journey by itself would also be a learning process for you, in addition to the award. So with the call, today we have for this session, we're going to cover one of the most important topics, and I must say it's very timely. And we have our colleagues from the UNDP Climate and Security Risk, and colleagues from UNDP Country Office from Somalia and Philippines who are working on this issue to share their expertise and knowledge with you all. And we hope this session will explore how climate change is influencing global stability and what is needed to design effective and suitable and just solution. And the speakers will explore the role of youth in climate peace and security nexus, key areas where innovation and action are most needed, and practical tips for designing effective and sustainable and just climate peace and security interventions. So to give you a little bit of introduction about our speakers, we have Catherine Wong. Catherine Wong is the UNDP's global team leader for climate and security risk, and its principal technical lead on climate, peace, and security. Catherine possesses over 15 years of experience working on climate change and environment and the environment at the UNDP and also in the field. We also have Pauline Dinapour. I am trying to pronounce it right. Dinapour. Pauline works as a youth empowerment policy specialist and global youth team lead at the UNDP in New York. And in this capacity, Pauline coordinates the youth portfolio of UNDP, covering areas on youth civic engagement, political participation, youth peace and security, youth economic empowerment, and youth and climate, among others. We also have Abdi Sadiq. Abdi Sadiq is a project specialist with youth and climate security within the UNDP Resilience and Climate Change portfolio in Somalia. He's working very closely with government institutions, civil society organizations, and private sector and local communities in the area of climate security and youth empowerment. We also have Judith Guzman. She's a project manager from Philippines country office. And so today it's going to be a very interesting webinar with all these experts in the house. So any questions you may have, use the Q&A feature. And I'm going to give it over to Catherine, and I wish you all a wonderful session. Over to you, Catherine.
Great, thank you so much, Lydia. And as mentioned, a really warm welcome to all to this second in the thematic webinar sessions on the Youth for Climate Call for Proposals this year. We're particularly excited about this session, given the attention that we have seen to these issues in recent years. I hope that you're able to see my slides here. But just to give context, first of all, I mean, youth, as we know it, are on the front lines of different crises, right? So not only the climate crisis, but also, when we're talking about the climate crisis, we're talking about, you know, the hottest temperatures that we have seen in recent years. And in addition to that, levels of conflict that have not been seen since the UN was created. So, you know, these are crises not of the making or doing of youth, but youth are nevertheless on the front lines. Youth are also innovators here. They're also the ones who are driving solutions. And so, you know, the momentum on the ground, this is where we see youth having the greatest impact. So, you know, a really big thank you to our colleagues at the government of Italy. A big thank you to the Rome Centre, as well to our colleagues, Roxani and Lydia and team as well, for their foresight, for their curiosity, for their pursuit of innovation here, given how new this space is. And notwithstanding the challenges that you've already faced in terms of accessing finance, you know, for the climate, peace and security field in particular. This is the only direct access opportunity, or the very first direct access opportunity that we have seen specifically for youth-led solutions on climate, peace and security. So jumping straight in here, and in terms of what we actually mean by climate, peace and security, first of all, and I will give a few perspectives on this from UNDP side and from the side of the UN system. And then in addition, I'll go into and try to respond here to what we see as the added value of youth and why youth are so important to this particular agenda. So first of all, you know, when we're talking about climate, you know, this is, we're talking about somewhere between 3.3 and 3.6 billion people around the world who live in areas most affected by climate. And there are climate hotspots, as we are aware. Sub-Saharan Africa, small island developing states, least developed countries as well, you know, as we know that the impacts of climate are contextual. And it's estimated that over the next 10 years, 120 million people will be pushed back into poverty by climate change. And given that climate is so contextual, what this means is that different countries, based on their vulnerabilities, based on the risk that they're facing, will experience climate change in different ways. And it would be remiss of us here to not understand that those countries that are affected by conflict and fragility are amongst the most vulnerable to climate and have the least capacities to address and respond to it. So this is, I guess, the crux of the issue, and the really impetus for the kind of solutions that we are looking for in this call for proposals, this call for solutions this year. Youth are really important here, as mentioned at the beginning. We are talking about 700 million youth, young people who live in conflict-affected and fragile contexts, again, suffering from climate change, and not only suffering from climate change and conflict and fragility, but at the same time, displacement. And we know that year upon year now, climate change is the #1 cause of displacement. Even taking into account what is happening in Ukraine at the moment, Gaza and DRC, we still find cumulatively that climate is the #1 driving force of new displacements. And it's estimated, you know, if we look at the data of the World Bank, we look at the Groundswell report, for example, if we're looking at IEP or UNHCR, there's somewhere between 200 and 1.2 billion people who will be displaced by climate up until the turn of the century. So a real need to look at these interactions between climate and conflict, and understand that we're not talking about two separately occurring phenomena. We really need solutions that address both in an integrated manner. Another concern, apologies for the technical difficulties here, but so another challenge for us as well, it's not just it's not just the problems that face us, it's that the solutions are out of reach because of the allocation and access to climate finance, right? So conflict-affected and fragile contexts are also amongst the lowest recipients of global bilateral and multilateral finance. So a real gap which increases because of lack of investment effectively over time. In recent years, we have seen interest in climate peace and security coming from different fora. So not only from the UN Security Council, but also from successive COP presidencies in recent years, from the UN with the creation of the Climate Security Mechanism, but also the World Bank, and even more recently, the vertical funds. So there's a lot of top cover in this space. And I think what we really need to do to close this gap, and what we're seeing here together with our partners, is to be able to bridge this gap between the policy and the financing changes and developments that have been set in motion, that are getting more and more attention in recent years, to the actual solutions which are coming up from the ground, and making sure, you know, that we can provide a space to help foster these solutions, to help provide mentorship, to help provide seed funding, as we are doing through this Youth for Climate initiative. And in terms of the actual solutions that we are looking at, and I think it also speaks to the definition here, again, back to the question, what are we talking about when we refer to climate peace and security? Ultimately, it's not, I guess, a grand theoretical definition. We're not talking about schools of thought here when we talk about climate peace and security at UNDP. What we're talking about is an operational agenda, you know, the impetus for action. What does climate peace and security mean for our work? And first of all, you know, and we're contextualizing it within the youth empowerment agenda. What we see as being, you know, the very forefront of innovation here is youth-driven solutions that climate-proof. And by that, I mean taking into account climate risk, climate vulnerability, and mainstreaming this into conflict prevention, post-conflict stabilization, and peace-building initiatives on the ground. We are doing everything we can to deliver on climate change mitigation adaptation. At the same time, we really have to make sure that, you know, we're not just putting the technical solutions in place, but making sure they contribute positively to peace. A third point is really just the integration between the two. Climate action in conflict-affected and fragile contexts, you know, it should be closely integrated and should be working in the same direction as, again, our prevention and peace-building opportunities. How can we find these win-win solutions together, and how can we help, again, make sure that we bolster these grassroots efforts that we are seeing, particularly in conflict-affected and fragile contexts? And then, as a final point here, we know that many of the risks related to climate, like the risks that we also face in terms of conflict and fragility, they cannot be easily addressed in a kind of simple country office modality, right? We need better cross-border, we need better regional and sub-regional programming and approaches as well. So I think, you know, this really is kind of the aspiration in terms of innovative youth-led solutions for climate peace and security. So there are solutions which would come across I guess, a whole spectrum or range of activities, and you'll hear more from Pauline, you'll hear more from Abdisadik and Judith on, again, what this looks like. But in a nutshell, again, the technical solutions which are youth-led, which are solving problems that youth and their communities are facing. So for climate resilient energy, water, for natural resource management, again, adaptation and mitigation that contributes to peace. And what do we mean by this? So it's adaptation and mitigation that strengthens social cohesion, that helps build dialogue and cooperation, and really focuses on the hard to reach, you know, the kind of last mile in our climate change efforts, and again, with a particular focus on conflict affected and fragile contexts. Those among us, again, who are working on conflict resolution, who are working on peace processes, who are working on addressing decision-making around natural resources. We know that this work is happening in highly climate vulnerable contexts as well. And the need to integrate climate, climate being an entry point to, again, reinforcing cooperation and peace building and strengthening our efforts to sustain peace. This is really at the crux of what we're looking at in terms of innovation as well. And so just in quick summary, youth innovators, youth leaders, entrepreneurs, peace builders as well. There's a different spectrum of actors here, and I think it's the collaboration across these different silos that is important. Addressing climate challenges, I think, is obviously at the crux as we're talking about youth for climate here. And then again, this kind of peace building dividend, this peace co-benefit, or peace building kind of additional co-benefits that we could address really, I think would help to define what we are looking for here in a nutshell. So that's just to quickly wrap up in terms of how this call for proposals is set up. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Abdi Sadiq, who is the Youth and Climate Security Specialist with UNDP Somalia, who's going to offer perspective from his work in this space on the ground. Abdi, over to you.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Gaia, maybe if you can share the slides. Yeah, thank you so much. So what we normally say is that when it comes to the youth, they are the bridge between the community and the world. So because of that, today I will look when it comes to the climate, peace and security from an angle of the community, so that the youth will be able to go into this space, and they will be able to have an interesting proposal when it comes to engaging the community on the areas around the climate security risk. So in this aspect, what are some of the innovations and actions that are needed for the youth-led initiative, they have to look into? One of the areas that I thought will be very interesting, and this I am providing in the context of Somalia, I think the youth should explore areas around the climate-induced resource-based conflict. Already Catherine has mentioned. But just to give an example is that the youth lead, organizations can have an initiative which can explore how youth should be part of, for example, water governance in peace building at the local level. This will help the community to actually understand the role that the youth will play when it comes to the water governance, and especially addressing the issue related to the conflicts over the resources at the local level. And then also the youth can explore areas around the local community climate security risk awareness, because most of the youth across the world, they are more engaged in online platform. They use the social media. And I think is an area that can be explored when it comes to the community digital solutions for climate security awareness through social media. And this will help, the youth to connect their communities with the world when it comes to the addressing the climate peace and security. And then the other area of the interest that I think the youth should also explore and see how can they contribute to their communities is by ensuring that the gender role is clearly outlined or clearly comes out when it comes to the climate, peace and security. Youth initiative can, focus on strengthening community-based platforms. A good example, for example, we have in Somalia is where we have a platform for women for peace. So how do we engage women, young girls, when it comes to the addressing the climate, security risk at the local level? And I think that is an area also which is very rich that the youth can explore when it comes to having a very impactful, initiative at the community level. The other area I think that the youth should also explore is the area around youth as an agent for environmental peace building. As we all know that in the society, the youth are the ones who are the change or who are the agent of change, be it policy, be it climate, be it security. So I think taking that advantage and, you know, coming up with an initiative which, you know, are more innovative to address the climate security at the community level will be very important. Maybe just to highlight more shed on this is, for example, the youth can look at areas where they can organize exhibition and events. This doesn't need to be a larger, you know, scale events or a larger, you know, a larger exhibition. This just need to be a small exhibition and events that addresses the issues of the climate, you know, peace and security at the community level. I think youth can engage in this and create awareness in peace building as part of the climate action at the community level. The other area that I also think the youth can explore is area around the traditional knowledge sharing. All of us, we come from communities. All our communities have different, you know, traditional knowledge sharing when it comes to the peer-to-peer learnings. So I think these are very area of interest when it comes to addressing the challenges of the climate, peace and security at the community level. The youth should explore leverage on traditional knowledge and practices, because this is a very powerful tool to address the community climate in these conflicts. And this can also, the youth can take advantage of this to also integrate the traditional knowledge into the modern digital solutions. So combining both, complementing each other will be very important. And I think this will be one of the most innovative and, you know, impactful actions that youth should look at when it comes to the developing a very important or a very impactful proposal at the community level. And then in this area, I will also mention youth to look at areas around local sustainable livelihoods and economic opportunities. If you look at the rate of unemployment when it comes to the youth at the community level, it's very high. And I think youth can explore an initiative on this area where they have an alternative livelihood for the youth and their communities that, you know, can reduce dependency on, for example, activities around charcoal productions. And I know this is also applicable to other countries. So this is an area that is very interesting and need to be looked for the youth to be able to come up with, you know, creating green jobs. This doesn't mean you have to create a large, you know, extent of green jobs. This just need to be small green businesses where the youth can be, you know, engaged, the communities can be engaged, so that they will be able to provide for themselves a viable alternative to, you know, other illegal, you know, activities like the charcoal production. Now, moving to the other areas of interest, which is around what really makes the youth, you know, initiative very impactful when it comes to the addressing climate peace and security challenges at the local level. Over the years, we have noted that youth, they are the one who are at the grassroots level, at the community level. They are the one who understand the need of their communities. So coming up with initiative that, you know, addresses the community challenges when it comes to the climate peace and security will be very, very crucial. And so the aspect that makes, you know, the initiative very impactful, one of them is the local ownership. When you look at all the youth initiatives, they are more impactful, are driven by the needs of their, you know, communities directly affected by the climate change. And a good example in Somalia, we had where we implemented climate security pilot projects at the community level. And at the local ownership was very, very crucial. So as you go into, you know, come up with a good initiative and a good proposal, you should look how you will ensure that the local ownership is being, you know, incorporated into your proposal. That will be very, very, very important. And then also the areas around the local knowledge integration. I think youth are deeply connected to their communities, and you know, for them to have the local knowledge integration into their proposal that focuses on areas around the climate, peace, and security will be very, very important. This makes them, the youth to design, along their cultural relevance. So cultural relevance is very important. Most of the programs or initiatives that are out there, because of the lack of, cultural relevance, it didn't make any impactful. So I think as you go and, have your initiative and you are thinking around the climate, peace, and security, think how you can incorporate when it comes to the cultural relevance into your proposal. And this should be tailored to the specific of the needs of your communities. And then also, when it comes to the initiative that are led by the youth, I think one of the areas that have been really out there is the innovative and adaptive solutions. When you think about youth, you always think about them bringing, a fresh perspective and creative to the to have their solutions out there. So developing, innovative and adaptive proposals that, ensures that it embraces the local consideration for the climate security challenges will be very important. And this can also be incorporated into, technology and digital platform to address the issues of the climate, peace, and security. And then the other things that make the youth-led initiative very impactful when it comes to addressing climate, peace, and security is, having that strong local networks and partnerships. In Somalia, for example, under the Somalia Youth Climate Platform, that is, under the Resilience and Climate Change portfolio of UNDP, we had a platform where we had over 46 youth networks. And these networks really help them, to ensure that the initiatives benefits, when they're coming up with initiative benefits from the local networks. So putting that into your proposals will be really useful, because it gives you that, knowledge that you need for your proposal to be high quality. It gives you that resources and support, and you enrich your proposal with the local, networks knowledge that is out there. And this network really amplify the impact of addressing climate, peace, and security challenges at the local level. And around this area, I think having that strong, local ownership, having that local knowledge integration, incorporating into your proposal, as well as being innovative and adaptive, where you bring the traditional knowledge, and as well as, the digital knowledge that is currently, out there, where you incorporate and have as a one, where they complement each other, and as well as strong local networks. If you have that, I think your proposal, it will give out a very high quality comparative advantage out there. And I will go to the next section, where I will be discussing, some of the practical consideration when it comes to the youth, designing their climate, peace, and security solutions, and what could be, some of the challenges around that. When it comes to the practical consideration, you look at also the local context, relevance, and knowledge. I think that's something that really need to come out of, proposal, for it to show that it is providing a local solutions. So climate, peace, security solutions must be tailored, to address the unique environmental and conflict dynamic of your communities. And that is really, really, really important. If that has not been addressed, then failure to tailor the solutions to the local needs and culture can result in lack of community ownership, which I've already mentioned, and poor implementation. So it won't have much impact on your communities. So it is very important to always incorporate the local context, relevancy, and knowledge into your proposals as you look at areas around the climate, peace, and security. And then also, I just want to mention the stakeholder engagement is very important. Effective climate peace and security solutions require collaborations with all the stakeholders, including the community leaders, the local government. This also gives you buy-in. This will also support you when it comes to, to have a strong partnership and as well as aligning the solutions to the local and national priorities. So a good example that I can give from Somalia is that in Somalia, we have the currently National Transformation Plan that runs from 2025 to 2029. So all the issues or all the initiatives that has been developed should be aligned to the priorities. So the National Transformation Plan also addresses the local priorities that is aligned to the national priority. So I think this is also applicable to other countries where you have different development plan initiatives. This is an area that you need to engage the partners and as well as because it also gives at the end of the day you need to expand, you need to have that partnership, you need to have that huge impact at your communities. And then the other consideration that should be taken into account is when it comes to the scalability and sustainability. The climate peace and security solution should be designed with scalability and long-term sustainability in mind. What do I mean by this? The current fund that you are looking at is very small, but you should design your proposal in such a way that this can be, scaled up, not only by this fund, but by the other partners. And for example, a community digital solution for climate security awareness, such as social media, campaigns, can be scaled up to reach a broader audience across the regions. You have done it for your communities, but this can still be expanded at the national level, regional level, and international level, because you are focusing on something that is very, very innovative, that focuses on community digital solutions for climate security awareness. And if you fail to design your solutions that work, you fail, to design well, and you only focus on a small scale or without considering long term, then this can limit your effectiveness in terms of impact and as well as in terms of scalability of that. And then the other thing that I would like really to bring out when it comes to the practical consideration is areas around the data-driven decision making. The climate security part is an emerging issue when it comes to the climate. But I think a wide number of research have been done at your local levels, at your national levels, at global levels. Something has been done. You need to ensure that you use reliable data on local climate impacts and conflict dynamics that is essential for crafting targeted and effective interventions. So, for example, data on water resources in your local areas where community live can inform solutions to mitigate conflict over natural resources. That is really, really, really important. So if you don't provide such accurate data that inform the decision making, then that will lead to poorly designed solutions that fail to address the root cause of the climate, related security challenges. I think as you go out there, you need to look around data, which is very, very, very important. And I think Catherine has also mentioned that. And then the other area also I would like to look at is what is it that you need to have it as as part of inclusive response solutions for your local needs. As you develop your proposal, the high quality proposal that you expect to go through for yourself, what is it that you need to consider? One, you have to ensure that the adoptive, participatory approach should be there. And this includes the communities that you come from, the government, local government you are working with, the local NGOs, the local private sectors, including men, women, people with disability, the minority groups, elderly, and vulnerable. All this, when you are designing your initiatives, you need to look around that. How will they be contribute, or how will they be engaged, or how will they be part of addressing the climate peace and security at the community level? That will be really, really, really important. And then the other solutions where you will have an inclusive and responsive to local need that you really need to bring it out is around the gender inclusion. And I've already mentioned when I was talking about having, innovative action, considering gender roles in climate peace and security. So ensuring that, your initiative will be able, to contribute and address the SDG 5, which focuses on, the gender equality, and as well as, having this gender inclusion when it comes to the women, girls, marginalized group at the community level. I think that will be really, really important. And you have to ensure that really comes out, because at the end of the day, I mentioned that youth can play a key role by having a small initiative, but that the impact is so huge. Where I give a good example is water governance. You don't need to have, 100,000, 200,000. You just need to have a small amount that supports you to come up with, engage the elders, the women groups, the youth, to have the water governance, committees, which can sit together and provide, climate peace and security, solutions at the community level. So this is where I was mentioning we need to have gender inclusions. That really need to come out, and to ensure that this will also help when it comes to the gender for them, to participate in decision making and leadership, and this really need to be areas that you need to also focus and explore as you develop your proposal. And then the other thing also I want to mention is around the local cultural context. While you are using that, you need to integrate the traditional knowledge with modern solutions, as I already mentioned. This will show that your initiative is inclusive and responsive to the local need when it comes to addressing the climate peace and security at the local level. And as well, also you can do leverage on the local, knowledge expertise. This is where you have peer-to-peer learning. One of the, I think, important areas that in all our programming we need to, that really come and really need to come out, is to ensure that the traditional knowledge that is there at the community level is being incorporated into our work, so that the impact is being, really felt at the community level. Also, ensure that for your, solutions to be very responsive, embrace technologies and innovations through youth-led digital solutions like social media, to raise awareness and advocate for climate security initiatives. This will also be really important. One of the questions that maybe we'll ask ourselves, okay, we have the technology out there. So how does it address the local, climate security, climate peace and security, issues? You need to think around that, and if that really come out, then I think we will have a very impactful, initiative. And then finally, I would like to mention something around the local ownership and long-term, sustainability. This needs to be also incorporated into your initiative. When we are talking about climate peace and security, we talk about two things. The first thing is solutions. The second thing is sustainability. Do we have the solutions at community level that the communities accept it? The communities, it's relevant to the communities' traditional knowledge. It's relevant to the gender, equality at the community level. Is it relevant to the stakeholders that are there within the communities? And I think from that angle, considering all those aspects and incorporating into your proposal will be really, really helpful. Thank you so much, and I will be happy to provide if there is any question at the later stage to ask about any community level solutions that have been, really effective in Somalia. Thank you. Back to you.
I think that's me. Thank you. I hope you can hear me. Can you confirm, Lydia?
Yes, we can hear you clear.
Super, thank you. So this is Pauline speaking. And as Lydia said before, I'm the Global Youth Specialist working at UNDP based in New York. Very happy to be on this call. I feel like we have heard a lot of ideas already and a lot of tips, including from you, Abdi. It was a very practical presentation. Thank you so much for that. But I will try to perhaps zoom in a little bit more on a knowledge product that might be useful for you all to consult while preparing for your applications. So, but before doing that, as you can see on your screen on the map, and I think Catherine highlighted that before, but just to reiterate why we think that engaging with young people is actually critical to address climate security risks. The obvious reason is that, as you can, I don't know if you can see on the map, but what it shows is that there is an overlap between countries with the greatest exposure to climate change and countries with the greatest impact of armed conflict. Out of 11 countries that are most vulnerable to climate hazards, we know that 7 of them are also among the least peaceful countries in the world. So namely Afghanistan, Yemen, Syria, we heard from Abdi in Somalia, DRC, Central African Republic, Sudan, South Sudan, or Mali, for instance, are all countries where we know that there is an overlap between climate exposure to climate change and to armed conflict. In addition to this, what the map shows is that there is also an overlap with the median age of in the country, meaning that those are also the countries where we know that there is the largest young people's generation, youth generation. So there is an overlap, there is a correlation between climate exposure, fragility, and age groups. Especially in the Sahel. If you look at Africa here, you can see in the Sahel region, in the Horn of Africa, or in the Central Sub-Saharan Africa, this is where the overlap is the most obvious. And how does this translate? So it translates into a reality, the reality that combined effects of climate change, insecurity, disproportionately affect young people and future generations compared to other generations. So this is the baseline, if I may say, explaining why we think that it's crucial to address climate security risk with young people and to engage with them and to find some solutions. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this slide explains, so I'm zooming out a little bit again, but why we think that youth matters, not only to address climate security risks, but overall, and this is very much aligned with UNDP's approach to youth empowerment. So first of all, this is a demographic imperative to work with young people, and I must say that the approach that we adopt and that we encourage you all to adopt as well is not to work for young people, and not either on young people, but to work really with them. And I think the Youth for Climate call gives us an opportunity to actually have youth, young applicants at the forefront and have them as partners and not only as beneficiaries. So I think it was said before, but there is an estimated 1.9 billion young people in the world. So this is the largest youth generation in history. We also know that 9 out of 10 young people in the world live in program countries for UNDP, meaning those are countries where we have projects and programs tackling development and peace issues. In most of those countries, 60 to 70% of the population is below 30. So this is a very obvious figure that shows how demographically the youth population is important, and that's why we can't ignore them. And another data that we have, and that actually relates to the previous slide, is the fact that 1 in 4 young people is affected by violence or armed conflict. It's also for us, for UNDP, a democratic issue and democratic imperative. Young women and men face a wide array of development challenges and are frequently involving negative assumptions about their age, their experience, their capabilities. And we know that across the world, young people are still victims of discrimination, repression, and various threats. And we think it's a high time to recognize and support young people as, again, as transformative forces, as agents of change, as peace builders or agents of sustainable development. We know, and I think Abdi has shared quite a few good examples showing that young people are already responding to today's challenges, including climate challenges, contributing with fresh ideas, innovative solutions, and driving development and peace for themselves, their communities, their societies as well. And so we need to strengthen their contribution, their leadership, their agency, and to make sure that their needs are considered and supported. Next slide. So I also wanted to quickly provide an overview of how the climate, peace, and security agenda connects with the youth peace and security agenda. And I think there was a question posted in the Q&A segment about the integration of the peace and security agenda. So short answer is that yes, definitely we need to integrate the peace and security agenda, and more specifically the youth peace and security agenda into the proposals in that case. For us, the way young people drive peace and security responses and how they address climate security risks is highly connected to the youth peace and security agenda. So here on the screen, you can see a very brief overview of what is the youth peace and security agenda. Overall, you need to remind that the agenda recognizes the importance and positive contributions of young people in conflict prevention and resolution. It moves beyond seeing young people as victims or beneficiaries or perpetrators of violence, and it highlights their true potential as peace builders and agents of change. And if you want to look at more details, we can share a few resources after I finish my presentation in the chat box. But for now, you can see here on the screen the 5 key pillars of the Youth Peace and Security Agenda. There is a key milestone Security Council resolution that has been adopted in actually 10 years ago. We are celebrating the 10th anniversary this year. Of the Security Council Resolution 2250, which was recognizing for the first time the Youth Peace and Security Agenda and outlining those 5 pillars that you can see on the screen. So I would really encourage you to also have this youth peace and security lens while developing your proposals, and really see the Youth Peace and Security Agenda as highly connected to the climate, peace, and security agenda. Next slide. So now I will zoom in a little bit on publication that UNDP, together with the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, SIPRI, and the Volker Bernadotte Academy, FBA, we have published in October 2024, so just a few months ago. It's called Beyond Vulnerability, and I think a colleague of mine will share the link in the chat box so you can access to it as well. And so this is a guidance note. So it's meant to be a very practical toolkit or report, highlighting all sorts of examples of youth-led efforts to address climate-related security risks, provide practical guidance for advancing and the unified agenda on youth, climate, peace, and security. So I think Abdi shared already quite a few examples, so you might find actually them in the guidance notes. This, perhaps just to say that this knowledge product was developed in a very consultative and participatory way together with young people. We have consulted through different local consultations, online and offline, and engage with different groups of young people to come up with examples or stories of how young people can address climate security risks on the ground and including at the local level. Abdi insisted a lot on that, and I think it's really important to highlight the importance of local ownership and the importance of acting locally as well and involving the communities. So this guidance note actually highlights that, the need to empower young people at the local level as well, and to support their efforts at the community level. So we can move on to the next slide. I will just, and so this is not a summary of the guidance note, but I thought to share perhaps the key findings when it comes to how young people respond to climate-related security risks. So what the guidance note and the research leading to this publication found out is that we have highlighted actually 3 key ways where we saw young people being actively engaged in responding to climate security risks. The first one is about increasing and disseminating knowledge on the interlinkages of climate change and armed conflict, and I will then come to a few examples. The second way is advocacy, so advocating for policy change on climate, peace, and security. Abdi shared a few examples of using digital technologies, social media, so that would fall under this category of advocating efforts from young people for changing policies. And the last stream of action is working for peace through sustainable livelihoods and natural resource management. And I will also share a few examples. Next slide. So before reaching the conclusion, perhaps just to reiterate that the key message that the guidance note found is that young people are already at the forefront of climate, peace, and security. So the first stream of action that I highlighted before in terms of knowledge, increasing and disseminating of knowledge on those interlinkages. So we have collected a few examples and a few stories, including from Sudan, where there is a youth-led climate security research conducted so exclusively by young people. Also some reports developed by young people on the link between climate and disarmament at the global level have been published. Young climate security communicators are active in Nigeria, or we have seen also some examples of youth-led training of trainers on climate and security in Dominica and also other countries. Next slide. So now on the second pillar of action that we have seen when collecting the data and the stories is about, as I said before, advocacy for policy change on climate, peace, and security, again, led by young people. So this can be done in different ways. For instance, there is a group, youth advisory group to the UN Secretary General on climate change. So that might be actually a practical way to increase advocacy efforts for policy change at the global level on climate change. We have seen examples, so again in Somalia, and it's good to have actually colleagues from Somalia on the call, young people increasing government cooperation on climate and security. In Somalia, it's also, in fact, very timely because the country is in the process of developing a national action plan on youth, peace, and security. And as I mentioned before, this is highly connected to the youth, peace, and security agenda. And for us, it's critical that when developing this new policy framework for the country, there is also a climate, peace, and security lens inside the national action plan. And that young people are able to advise on it. And another example is the youth advocacy efforts on the impact of climate change on human security in Brazil. Next slide. And this is the last stream of action on how young people can respond to climate security risks. So this is about working for peace through sustainable livelihoods or natural resource management. So we've heard some examples from Paraguay or Brazil or again Somalia on young people working together for sustainable water resource management and peace. We have heard in the process of the research from young people in Pakistan developing a climate smart agriculture with farmers to improve food security in flood affected areas. In the Pacific Islands, young people leading coral restoration to maintain livelihoods, planting trees in Somalia or in DRC. I don't know if we have young people from DRC on the call, but we have also heard some very good examples of young people producing biocharcoal to protect the environment and strengthen livelihoods for the most vulnerable populations in the country. So those are just a few examples. Of course, there are a lot more, and but this is more for your inspiration of key practical examples from the ground. Now reaching some key conclusions and key findings from the guidance note that I referred to. So we concluded that it's all about the intentionality, in young people's climate, peace and security initiatives. So there is a need to really purposely work with young people to address climate, peace and security initiatives. So it's not just an option, it's an imperative. Young people, we know that they have the capacity to address climate, peace and security, but they need to be empowered and supported. And again, I think Youth for Climate gives us a great opportunity to do so. Another conclusion is that the climate security field can reap significant benefits from the Youth Peace and Security Agenda, as I shared before. So it's very important to link that to the Youth Peace and Security Agenda and its recent developments, also at the country level. So look at the national policies that are in place or that are under development with regard to youth peace and security in the country or at the local level. Of course, we know that local youth-led initiatives should be supported directly and resourced, funded. And lastly, flexible and risk-tolerant climate, peace and security funding for youth-led organizations is needed, including in conflict areas, of course. Next slide. Yeah, I think that was my last one. So I will hand it back to you, Lydia. Thank you very much.
Thank you all so much. I think I was also writing and I was taking a lot of notes, and I am sure this is going to be also very beneficiary for applicants. And from the beginning, I was trying to summarize, but we're discussing a lot of things. And I see a lot of people asking for the recording. Don't worry, we have that covered. We will share it on the platform. And one thing I caught was when Catherine was explaining the interrelation between climate change and the security as well, how both interfere with one another. Like when we don't have, when there is security issue, how that could actually bring climate crisis, and the other way around, how climate crisis could actually contribute to instability or peace security shortage, I would say. And also Pauline and Abdi, you shared very practical solutions with our community here, and I am sure it will be very beneficiary, and they were taking notes. And we have a lot of questions here, so I will take turn by turn, and maybe I will ask one question, and then we can you guys can tell me who would like to answer. So to start with the first question, maybe the first question we had on the Q&A was, how do you differentiate between, I think this is very good in the question, how do you differentiate between climate refugees and war-torn refugees? So if anybody want to reply to this, I will give the floor to you.
Maybe I should come in. The climate refugees and war-torn refugees, I think it is very hard to have this distinction, but maybe I will look at it from two angles. That is understanding the primary cause of their displacement. I think that's the angle we need to look at first, and then also the angle from the legal frameworks. Understanding the primary cause of their displacement, I think if you look at the refugees that are being displaced under the climate, shocks, I think displacement has been majorly caused by environmental disasters and the changes in climates, be it at community level, national level, or regional level. So we look at it from that point. And then when it comes to the war-torn refugee, these are the people who are displaced because of armed conflict, war, and political persecution. That's as per my understanding. And then in terms of looking at it from the legal frameworks, at the moment, there's no any legal framework that can, protect or can take into the consideration the climate refugees out there. But when you look under when you look on the other side for the refugees that are being displaced because of war-torn in their countries, this is protected under the 1951 Refugee Convention. I think the document can be consulted because it clearly defines what refugee is. It highlights that it has been people who are displaced under the armed conflict, war, and because of political persecution in their countries. And it clearly gives out that. And then maybe possibly it can be looked from the point of the geographical locations, maybe the people around the coastal areas because of high sea level and because of cyclones. Because of this, they will being displaced. And on the other hand, this could happen anywhere when it comes to the war, when it comes to the armed conflict. So it's really, really hard to differentiate unless you understand their story, their displacement. And that's now when you can say, okay, these are the war-torn refugees and these are the climate, shock refugees. Thank you.
Thank you, Abdi. I see Catherine's hand. Go ahead.
Thanks so much, Lydia, and thank you, Ishita, for this question as well. Abdi already, I think, gave the key points here, but I could quickly add as well. I think, as he alluded to, it's really difficult to I guess, differentiate because so many people are multiply displaced, right? So, for example, we see communities that have fled conflict, for example, only to then find themselves perhaps in camps and then also suffering because of drought, because of flood, and vice versa. So this is an important consideration as well. And again, part of it is, as Abdi said, about the protections and the rights that are enjoyed under the Geneva Convention. Another aspect relates to the fact that at the moment, most climate displacement is internal, right? So there's a need here to debunk some of the myths that are out there on climate and in general, climate writ large, but also related to climate peace and security and climate displacement. There are countries now, like if we're looking at Fiji, for example, and Solomon Islands, they have started preparing policy documents on climate relocation. This is going to be a big issue, right? We have 1 billion people that are living in low-lying coastal areas, as Abdi mentioned. By turn of century, 300 million will be under high tide levels, 600 million by the turn of the century. So we need to be looking at this with a kind of much bigger frame, a much wider lens, so to speak. We also need to think about those who are on the move on a seasonal basis. So what we often see now is pastoral communities, because of lack of resources, because of lack of pasture and water, they're moving, they're traveling much further distances than before, which leaves them further away from home, which may mean that they may come into potential conflicts with other communities which they haven't previously engaged with. So seasonal transhumance, I think, is something that we're looking at. And there's also the issue of trapped populations. So those who really potentially need our support to move away from harm, basically, but don't have the capacity, don't have the resources, and are potentially trapped in place. So really interesting question, something that we're still grappling with, and again, where there could be some potentially interesting solutions, which we would love to uncover here.
Thank you both so much. We had another question about, the second question we had was about if the proposal can be integrated in the peace and security agenda. I think Pauline touched on that. She also shared with us the guidance note. So it's also in the chat, but we will also share all the documents she has shared on our platform. So please use that as your guiding note while drafting your proposals. And so I will move to the second question because we're going out of time, and I want to cover as much as question as possible. The other one is, must the conflict be climate related, or social political conflict can be accepted while I think applying the call for solution? So maybe if anybody wants to answer this. Must the conflict be climate related, or social political conflict could also be one of the reasons for this call for solution application? Can they?
Thanks so much, Lydia. I could try to come in here as well. This is a really interesting question, right? A lot of the times we find that climate change isn't the direct cause of conflict in and of itself. It exacerbates underlying drivers of conflict and fragility. So we do see lots of interaction between social and political conflicts as they relate to natural resources. So you may often see protests, you may often see struggles, even conflict between communities over natural resources, right? But there may be other root causes that we need to address at the same time. So again, like the question of displacement, it's very hard to distinguish and draw a line. And I think, you know, that understanding of the two, being able to, again, offer a climate solution, one that also addresses underlying drivers of inequality, of kind of youth, marginalization, disempowerment of women, so on and so forth. I think these will be ideal solutions, ones that take us to, you know, win-win opportunities for youth and local communities.
Thank you so much, Catherine. I see one other question is the climate, peace and security, does climate, peace and security have something to do with local climate policy reform approach? If anybody wants to come in and answer that question.
Can you repeat the question, Lydia? Sorry.
Do the climate, peace and security, do climate, peace and security have something to do with local policy reform approach?
I can try to answer this, but perhaps Catherine can complement or the colleagues. I would say that it's yes, of course, and it has to actually be related to local policy documents or frameworks. And I think from the examples that were shared in the various presentations, it was highlighted that how important it is to act locally as well, to engage at the community level, at the local level. But that also applies to the policy level, right? It's another way to drive action, is to influence policies at all levels, not only at the country or national level, but also at the local level, and make sure that the policies that may be adopted, like I shared the example of the National Action Plan on Youth, Peace and Security, would definitely a valid policy adopted at the national level. But for us, it's also important to make sure that it then scales down to the local level, and that it's implemented and that it means something for young people, but also all generations at the local level, and that it's translated into local policies or local action. So I would say short answer would be yes, definitely. It has to be also translated at the local level, yes.
Thank you. And maybe there were two different questions relating to nature and climate, peace and security. And one of the last questions here was, if climate change affects wild animals, wildlife, and community that live close to, that are close to a risk and are directly affected, okay, could I apply for this initiative? And I also saw one other question about biosphere. So if we can maybe, if somebody can come in of like the interrelation between nature-based solutions and climate, peace and security.
Thanks so much, Lydia. I could come in. Would love to hear Abdi's thoughts on this as well. But definitely, I think in the case of rainforest. I'm looking at tropical rainforest regions here in Ethiopia. Obviously, when we're talking about rainforests, we're talking about their capacities for carbon sequestration, right? So that mitigation here as well. So this is a really kind of important, often overlooked aspect of the climate, peace and security agenda. Forestry resources are critical resources for lives and livelihoods as well. And not to mention as well as the kind of preservation of biodiversity and ecosystems. So there's a very close link between biodiversity and climate action, and these our efforts in this direction can be mutually reinforcing as well. We know that illegal logging, we know that environmental crime, it's the third largest source of criminal activity in the world, right? At the moment, worth hundreds of billions. So this can often help fuel illicit economies, other types of illegal activities as well, and again, and help further drive deforestation and overexploitation of natural resources, all of which have an adverse impact on the vulnerability of local communities and their insecurity at the same time. So definitely very interesting, and definitely the kind of thinking that we're looking for, I would say. I looked at Abdi as well, in case I'm not sure if the signal is good. If you wanted to add here.
Hello, Abdi. Maybe yeah.
No, I think Catherine has covered everything, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. And as we we always see with call for solution applications, from our experience, most issues are always interlinked, and we always see an interlinkage between different thematic areas, and very good proposals usually touch in multiple aspects of different areas. Like you said, climate peace and security could be touching the nature or the biodiversity thematic area, or it could be interlinked with sustainable energy. So that's actually appreciated to look to intersection or interrelations between other areas. And there is one question about, it's from Malian, about communication and information actors. How do they contribute to climate peace and security? And maybe over to you, Pauline.
Yes, happy to answer this one. It's actually a very valid question. I don't know if I should answer in French or in English. I can continue in English. It's easier for the interpreters. But thanks for the question. So how I mean, there are many ways to contribute to addressing climate security risks through communication and management of information. As long as it's also youth-led or youth-focused, and I can provide a couple of examples. So I would think one way to do it is through the collection of information, of data, no? And I think through the presentation you heard how important it is to make sure that the data is collected and is also youth specific and is considering needs of young people specifically. So I believe communication and information actors, being journalists or university students in some cases, they can contribute to this data collection. In Madagascar, for instance, we have supported, I don't know if we have colleagues from Madagascar on the call, but there is the Safidi Observatory, which is in majority youth-led, and that consists in collecting information from across the country and tracking information, verify information as well, and then provide an adapted response to security risk in that case. So not necessarily climate related, but that's one example. Another example on communication, information, and perhaps advocacy in that case is also through the rollout or development of community radio programs. And there are a few examples in particular in Africa, I think, that was used in many ways at the community level. We've worked with community radios to develop broadcast series on specific topics, including on peace and security. And those radio programs were facilitated and designed, in fact, by young people themselves, not necessarily professional journalists in that case, but that was one way of using communication skills to convey messages, key messages, and disseminate information across communities. So that's what I can answer.
Thank you, Pauline. And we also in our work plan and budget template and also our application form, we encourage our applicants to really think about communication and also have some budget because whatever you're doing, if there is no awareness that comes with it, it's usually it will die small. So I think working close with communication actors and also as a project like it could be for all projects, but having a stronger communication team that will be very beneficiary to actually.
Maybe I can add one point also, if
Yes, please,
that's
Abdi.
okay. Yeah, I think Pauline has covered everything, but I just wanted to mention, I think where the communication should come in also is around the digital storytelling about the climate peace and security. I think that can widely reach a lot of people. That can be, shared. That can be and areas that I think they need to. The communication expert will look into it and really clearly bring out what does it mean. Really bring out the issue around the nexus between the climate change and security. I think still a lot of population do not understand the linkage between the climate change and security, and I think the communication expert or the communication team can take advantage of that, put out this digital storytelling. This can as well, for example, one of very practical areas is the communication expert can, write a digital storytelling on the nexus between climate and security, and as well as push an agenda where, this can be adopted by either, government into curriculum where the climate security is part of, curriculum at the lower level, at the primary or secondary level. This will ensure that from even younger generation, people will understand what does the climate security means from there. At the moment, it is 50-50. Most of people don't know the linkage still yet, but pushing that climate security to be integrated into the curriculum at the primary or secondary level for the young, children to understand as they grow into, youth and as they become part of the community, and then as well as, addressing that gap, I think will be one of the key role for the communication expert. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. I wish we had more time because it's a very interesting, and I think we all need to learn a lot more about the interlinkage with multiple sectors. But it's time now. So if we have any questions, in case we didn't address them, please be sure that we will go through all the Q&A and the chat after this call and try to reply them on the FAQ page. So please go ahead to the, if my colleagues could kindly share the FAQ page link. So go there and you will find answers to the mostly asked questions. And I also want to drop a link to our resource page where you can find resources about the thematic areas. This is all thanks to our colleagues who are also here. So thank you all so much for this. And I also want to say thank you for our interpreters, our colleagues. Thank you, Catherine, Pauline, Abdi, Gaia, all of you. Thank you so much. And I wish you all a wonderful day, night, or it depends on where you are. And we will see you on Friday. On Friday, we will be discussing digitalization and we'll cover digital for planet thematic area. So stay tuned and have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you all so much. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you so much, all.
Thank you. And good luck for the applications. And happy Ramadan to those of you who observe.
Thank you, Pauline. Thank you.
Thank you all.